Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of August. So this month I read 2 1-star reads, 0 2-star reads, 3 3-star reads, 7 4-star reads, and 1 5-star read. I think total that's 13 reads, if I can count correctly. I'm going to be doing this in chronological order rather than in star order, so that way you guys can walk through this journey with me of the books that I read this month. The first book that I read this month was Grievous by J.M. Darhauer. This was the sequel to a book called Menace. It follows 2 characters, Lorenzo and Morgan. Lorenzo is not really a crime boss. He's like the anti-crime boss. He's taken out basically all of the all of the mob in New York. He comes across Morgan when Morgan attempts to steal his wallet. She is a former prostitute who is trying to get her daughter back from her abuser. I really liked this. That's why I read the sequel. I liked the first one, I liked this one. The fucking narration is amazing. Both Morgan and Lorenzo are hilarious, which I didn't expect from something that was marketed as like a dark romance. I liked that Lorenzo was blind in one eye and that actually affected his life in some ways. He couldn't drive very well because his depth perception was shitty. And I also just really liked Morgan. She wasn't a damsel in distress even though her daughter was stolen from her. It was a good book, okay? I feel like I should defend myself liking this, but I'm not going to. The next book I read this month was another 4-star read, and that was The Chase by Elle Kennedy. I liked her off-campus series. This one was about an ADHD, fashion-loving, beautiful blonde girl named Summer and her relationship with a guy named Fitz, who is a hockey player, of course. But he also designs video games, and that's what he wants to do after he graduates. And I feel like oftentimes in new adult, especially when an author has written a bunch of books in the series, she can make her characters a little too similar. The guys are all douchey, and the women are all damsels in distress or weak-ass bitches. That just wasn't the case here. I thought both of the characters had their own personalities, and I honestly loved Summer. I thought she was amazing. Like, she was not a typical ditzy blonde. There's a lot of good talks about misogyny and like how to help your friends out when they've been sexually assaulted. There's a scene when one of Summer's friends is sexually assaulted and she helps her out, and I really enjoyed that, and I thought it made for a more interesting and fulfilling new adult read rather than just like the typical, oh yeah, they bang and like get together. So I liked this one. Okay, the first 1-star read that we're going to be talking about is The Pure and the Puppet by B.B. Reed. I got about 65% done with this before I just said, fuck it, I cannot do this to myself anymore. It starts as most shitty new adult books do. We've got this kind of like badass motorcycle riding, like I'm a hard ass but I also have emotions kind of girl. Her mother marries a very rich, like, tycoon type character. Obviously this guy has a douchebag son, and the douchebag son and the girl get together. What are these characters' names, you might ask? The girl's named For, the guy is named Ever. I think that should tell you everything you need to know about this book, but I'll explain a little bit more. The plot is just laughable at best. There's bullying and blackmailing by Ever. He goes into her personal spaces without her permission. I think there's times when he sees her naked without her permission. It just made me feel uncomfortable and I didn't like it. Also, there's like a gang element to it, which kind of comes in last minute and makes no fucking sense. So this guy is a douchebag football player, but oh my god, also he's in a gang. I just couldn't do it to myself, so I had to finish that book, or like stop reading it. So the next book I read this month was The Last of August by Brittany Caballero. I will put the jacket right here so you can see what that looks like. I thought this was okay. It was just more of the same shit, but like not fun. There's a lot of angst without a lot of witty banter, if that makes sense. So, I mean, that's like what I enjoy about these books. Funny they are, despite having like kind of dark subject matter and having a lot of angst. This didn't really have a lot of the fun, and it also wasn't in the boarding school, which, like, I'm sorry, I like a boarding school setting, so taking it to Europe for an art heist didn't really excite me. I'm gonna continue with the third book. I have it, I'm gonna read it for Contemporary-a-thon, but I didn't like this that much. Next book I read this month really took me by surprise, and it is It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne. I literally knew nothing about it going in. It's about a girl named Audrey who's dealing with a lot in her home life. Essentially, her dad left her mom for another woman and has a new family and doesn't really care much about Audrey anymore, and then the mom is kind of an alcoholic. Audrey decides she's going to get out of the house and go work at a movie theater where she meets a guy named Harry. They proceed to have a relationship, sort of. I can't really tell you guys about the best part of this book because it would spoil it for you, but there is so much to love here. It is not a typical love story. It's a story about finding yourself and finding out what love actually means. It's not about a feeling, it's about a choice that you make every day. I feel like a lot of young people probably need to hear that message. It was a little depressing, I will say, given the family subject matter, but I think it was resolved nicely in a way that wasn't too cheesy, so I'd recommend this. It was a really good read. My second 1-star read would be Coed by Rachel Van Dyken. Alright, a lot of shit to unpack here. We have 3 guys on campus referred to as the pleasure ponies. They are responsible for healing women, not sexually, but mentally, emotionally, whatever. And I say not sexually because they keep saying over and over and over again in the book, no penetration. Once they heal these women by like massaging them and listening to them or whatever, they recommend these women sign up for a dating app because they're being paid by a dating app to provide these services to women, which is pretty fucked up. And also, like, what the fuck? So that's great in and of itself, but then we also have a mixed race woman who's obviously coming into the picture. She's the main love interest. Pleasure ponies are just taken aback, like their dicks are pulsing in their pants. They love this girl. There's so much fetishizing of her being a mixed race woman. Like, this is written by a white woman. Don't really get any sort of representation besides just like adding color to the story. Like, cool, she's mixed race, awesome. But we get references to her skin as like chocolate milk, which I found fucking offensive. Oh, I just hated it. And of course the douchiest guy is the one that like falls for her or whatever. Just bad. It was really bad. The plot was ridiculous, made no goddamn sense. No. Sole 5-star read for the month was Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I think for me, not only do I rate books based on how good they are to me, how interesting they are, but I also rate them based on what they made me feel and if I read them like at the right time in my life. It's about a guy who is assigned to read people's emails at this newspaper. This was set in like 1999 or 2000. He reads emails that get flagged for whatever content they have. These two women have their emails flagged particularly frequently, so he ends up falling for one of the women who is writing these emails. There's just something so sweet about falling in love with someone who you've never seen before. I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't say the plot is anything like spectacular, so if you're looking for something really hard-hitting or fascinating, like, this might not be it for you, but I liked it. The next book I read this month was Filthy Gods. It was a 3-star book and it was a new adult. I feel like everybody was talking about this a couple of months ago and everybody, like all of my friends, gave it 5 stars. It's a novella. And I think it's supposed to be a precursor to a series about these like super rich fancy dudes. Basically the premise is rich dude at Yale, his parents own a country club, poor girl works at country club, and antics ensue. They get together, they consummate their hate relationship because they've known each other for a long time, we're supposed to believe, and like they've got this history and this chemistry. It just wasn't believable to me. I didn't really care when they hooked up. I didn't think it was that exciting. I didn't feel like the background that was supposed to be built upon could really be done successfully in a novella of such a short page length. I don't know, it was whatever. Okay, so the next 2 books I'm gonna recommend I actually really enjoyed and really took me by surprise. I'm gonna put both of them right here because they're from the same series. First one is the novella, which is called Flow, and then the second one is the actual book, and it's called Grip. It's about a black rapper from Compton who falls for his friend's sister named Bristol, who is from the other side of the tracks. She's really rich, grew up in New York, and she meets Grip and she falls for him. They bond very quickly. It is not an insta-love situation, and it is amazing. It's not a situation where you've got a black main character just to have a black main character. You're actually talking about the struggles that black people face in America, which was fucking phenomenal. Like, thank you. Finally, new adult that actually has some sort of depth to it. So as they fall for each other, you know, Grip tells Bristol all about what it's like to be a black man growing up in America, what it's like to fall for a white woman when he knows that neither of their families will approve. Reading that in a novella was amazing, and I was surprised at how well it was done in such a short period of time. I also gave 4 stars to Grip. I didn't like it quite as much. The rep, again, in this one was really fantastic. The things I didn't like, it was a little too stereotypical because you could tell they both wanted to be together, but like stuff was keeping them apart that seemed a little unrealistic. The next book I read this month was Tithe by Holly Black. This is the first book that Holly Black ever wrote back in like 2002, I think. I gave this one 3 stars. It's a really fun tale about a girl named Kay who was raised in the human world, but she's been able to see Fae her entire life. Eventually, she finds out she's more tied to the Fae world than she previously thought when she meets a Fae knight named Roybin in the forest when she's about 16. There's so many like Cardon and Jude vibes between the 2 characters in here. I will say the plot wasn't as tight or as intricate as I felt that The Cruel Prince was. The moment we've all been waiting for. Radio Silence. I gave this one 4 stars and I have a lot of feelings about it. Obviously, I had to see what Kat was fussing about when she was talking about Radio Silence in like every video, but it turns out it was really fucking good. I knew nothing about the plot going in, but it is about a girl named Frances who's head girl at her school in England, and she doesn't feel very connected to her friends in school. She doesn't feel like she can be her authentic self. It's about her relationship that develops between her and Aled, who is a sweet little cinnamon roll, and he is the creator of her favorite YouTube show. It's an anonymous show. My favorite thing about it was the friendship and the way the book was written. I liked that the boy and the girl, they don't end up banging. They're just good friends, and I felt that was really special. I didn't know if I'd like that because I like romance in my books, but I actually enjoyed it in this one. I also really liked that the chapters were really short. It made it really compulsively readable, and I felt like after every little section, there's just something in here that like you want to quote. And just in general, I really appreciated the overall message of this book, that you don't have to do what the conventional thing is. You don't have to go away to college and major in something useful. You can really take your life and do with it what you will. I really appreciated that. I thought that was a really nice message, and I think that if you're a young person going into college or in high school, this would really, really help you with where you're at. That being said, for me, it wasn't a 5-star read for that reason. I'm out of college already. I already kind of know what I want to do with my life, so I don't feel like it really impacted me as much as I would have hoped it would have. But this is definitely a book that I want to reread in the future, and a book that will definitely sit with me for a really long time. Crushed me and I cried a little bit, so really this is phenomenal, and thank you so much, Kat, for like telling everybody about this book, because it actually is fantastic, and I probably wouldn't have picked it up otherwise. And then the last book that I read this month was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. Well, me and Maureen, we do not have the best history. I've read like 2 or 3 of her books in the past, kind of hated all of them, but this was actually surprisingly good. I mean, how bad can a book be when there's a character who knocks herself out when she gets too anxious? I mean, come on. We love it. Self-care. The basic premise is that there's a wealthy 1930s tycoon. He opens school for gifted children. It's kind of a place where you can go and study whatever you want. Why am I raising my arms like that? Said tycoon's wife and child are kidnapped, and there's a note left behind by someone signed Truly Devious. Mystery remains unsolved until today. We are confronted with Stevie, who's obsessed with solving the mystery of Truly Devious and what happened to this tycoon's wife and children. One child, Alice. A lot of antics ensue from there. I will say I was annoyed by Stevie as a character. I felt like people with anxiety typically are hyper aware of social cues and of the way that they're affecting others, and that's why they're so anxious. Not so in Stevie's case, because she decides that it's okay to break into other people's rooms. Emotions be damned. She's kind of an unlikable character, but I was able to kind of put that aside because I enjoyed the plot. The actual mystery that happens in 1930 was super interesting, and then a new mystery develops in present day that she's also trying to solve along with it. I just felt like this was really good. I would say if you liked the Sherlock Holmes books, but you wanted more of a mystery set at a boarding school, not just like character drama, this is definitely what that is. I enjoyed this. That concludes my August wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm not going to be doing a TBR for September because I'm going to be participating in the Latinx book bingo and contemporary-thon, but I will be posting TBRs for those soon. Comment down below if you enjoyed this video.